Up until now, you should know that CSS is simply dealing with attributes and properties like text colors or styles. However, it also acts as an indicator to know which elements should be applied into the property. As we've seen, CSS consists of properties and attributes like the color being blue or the text being italic. And as you might have noticed already, CSS can indicate to what elements the property should be applied. You do this with selectors. This part is most important for you if you want to work with UI automated testing. You need to interact with the web elements using scripts such as Selenium driver. Let's see some examples of CSS syntax selectors. Like this one that selects all the div elements in an HTML page, or this selector that selects all the elements of an HTML page that have an ID of paragraph name, and this one that selects all the elements that have a class attribute set to class name. Nesting could also be done here. In this case, the selector has selected all paragraph elements with a div element as their parent, and this one with multiple elements selected on an HTML page. This includes the heading 1, heading 2, and paragraph elements. These are just to name a few. There are a wide range of selectors within CSS for you to choose from. Take a look at this HTML, where both have the class specific assigned to them and one of them has an ID of more important. Now this CSS will be applied to the HTML and will end up on this web page. What just happened, you might ask? To help you easily picture what has just occurred, let's start with the first thing that happened. For an HTML file like this would be the displayed result on your browser when CSS has been applied. You can see the text here is white on the gray background because there are CSS settings assigned to all p elements. It means that all p tags in this web page are applied to the same settings. If you want to have more specific settings for some paragraphs using p elements, you should use a specific class name to define specific CSS settings for them. For instance, in this example, I set the background blue for 2 paragraphs with a class name specific. Despite assigning the background color to be gray, none of the paragraphs has been applied to since there's a higher priority for the class attribute on the paragraph element. The same idea with this, but you can assign an ID to an element to make it appear with a different color. The ID attribute has an even higher priority and overrides the background color to green, and the black thin border as well. And now the black border around the second paragraph has disappeared because it has been overwritten by this property, important. As the specific class applies to both paragraphs, none of them have borders around it. The text color is white and there isn't any higher priority CSS to override these settings. With that being said, the orders of CSS priorities would be from tags, to classes, to the ID, then the important attribute. In addition, the call padding, the white text color and space in between the paragraphs, comes from the paragraph selector due to the fact that none of the higher priority selectors have overwritten these properties. To maintain and read your CSS easier, creating a large and complex hierarchies within CSS would make this possible. We've seen some of the most common capabilities of CSS already, like changing color, applying borders, and so forth. There are also more advanced features that can be found in newer CSS properties. One of those is the media query property. In this example, I will tell the browser that whenever we are displaying HTML on the screen with a width of 800 pixels, I'll want the body element to have the background color gray. This will give us something like this. The default background color would be displayed if the width of the page is lower than 800 pixels, but it will change in response to the adjustment made. We call this a responsive web page as it allows you to test on different screen resolutions and browser sizes. As a whole, CSS just specifies the standard of what they should do when they interpret a certain property. However, similar to HTML, not every CSS property is supported by every browser. On W3C, you can visit CSS reference browser support site to check if there's a particular property that is supported.